Good afternoon. I'm going to call this meeting to order here. Welcome everybody to Runestone Electric Co-op's annual meeting. If you are able, would you please stand and join in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag here? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Just going to take a little moment of silence to remember of actually why we were really here. Going to just bow your heads just for a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Going to add a little something here that's kind of near and dear to my heart. I'd always like to recognize the military, whether they are retired or if they are active. I'd like to recognize any firefighter, active or retired, any EMS personnel, and any law enforcement, retired or active. If you are in the crowd, would you please stand? Thank you very much for your service. God bless you. Mr. Secretary, do we have a quorum?
Mr. Chair, we do have a quorum.
The notice of the meeting and the proof of the mailing will be made part of the record of this meeting. Mr. Mark Sugden is our attorney. He's at the end of the table over here. I'd like you to appoint you to the parliamentarian this meeting. Would you accept that? Thank you. So what I would need from somebody out here is a motion is needed to limit the debate that no more than 5 minutes total per person and more than twice per person on any subject, with the stipulation that the parliamentarian can stop at any time that he sees fit. Could I get a motion for that? Got a motion. Is there a second? I see a second. Thank you kindly. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion is carried. Thank you. Earlier, we had sent out the agenda, and we had sent out the minutes from the previous meeting. What I'd like is I'd like to have a motion that we could forego the reading of the minutes of last year's meeting, since we sent it out, and I know everybody always reads everything they get in the mail before they throw it in a circular file, right? So if I could get a motion to forego the reading of the minutes, please.
I'll move to forego the reading of the minutes and approve the agenda as well.
Thank you very kindly. We've got a motion and we need a second. Is there a second? And a second back there. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Very good. Thank you, sir. For those of you that do not know me, my name is Gary Anderson. I go by Andy. I represent District 1 for the Runestone Co-op. I've been on the board here for 11 years. I've enjoyed every minute of it. I work with some pretty doggone good people sitting over there to your right. I also serve in the capacity of a board member at Great River Energy. I represent Runestone. Barbara Johnson serves as District 2. Barb has served the REA board for 17 years. That's a pretty good milestone. She has seen a lot of change in the electrical business. Thank you, Barb, very much. Mr. John Winter. Over the past year, John filled the spot that Audrey Jelly had. So John had to go up and have an election a year ago, and now to get back in the rhythm of things and the rotation of how we do our seats on the board, John is up for election again. So John is one of the candidates. John represents District 3. Thank you, John. District 4, Mr. Dave Staples. Dave has served on the board for 7 years and is currently the board secretary. Dave puts a lot of time into preparation for the board, does a lot of other meetings outside of the board, He's pretty active in other organizations. Thank you, Dave. District 5, Mr. Mike Loken. Mike is currently, he's our vice president, and he served on the board for 8 years. Mike is another one that'll take and go and be involved with other things other than Runestone, and he attends a lot of the Runestone activities outside, whether it be MREA, other functions of that. Thank you, Mike. District number 6, Mr. Joel Sela. Joel has completed his 3rd year as a board member. Joel comes to us with a pretty doggone good-sized resume. He has been in the electrical business for years. He's been a part of some nuclear energy, which maybe you're going to hear about this later on, but somewhere, someday, we hope to hear a lot more about it. Thank you, Joel. And before I move on, I'm going to add Joel is another one that is a District 6 candidate here. Just wanted to add that in there. District number 7, Mr. Matthew Matson. Look at that guy. He's been out in the field all day. Matt has been on the board for 3 years and serves right now as our treasurer. Matt's another one that, if you use the comment, no grass grows underneath his feet, he is involved with a lot of things outside of Runestone. We're pretty lucky to have him be a part of this organization. Matt also is representative on the ballot for District 7. Thank you, guys. Also want to talk about the people that are on the stage here to my right. Got our CEO here, Mr. Al Heyman. We also have Sue Lundeen, our member services manager. And we've got our attorney, Mr. Mark Sugman. We've got a couple guests here. I know we've got a past director. I think Cliff Patrick is here. At least I saw him out there. Are you in the crowd? There you are, buddy. Good to see you. And we've got, is there any other retired directors that are here in the crowd? If I missed you, I really apologize. And we have Lois Cronquist. Lois is the CEO at Star Energy. There she is right there. That is one very well-oiled machine over to that place there. It's quite a deal. All right. Within our annual meeting mailing that you received a few weeks ago with your registration card, we included a copy of the minutes in the previous annual meeting. By doing this, we can dispense with the reading. I apologize. We've already done that. I apologize. All right. Since we've already dispensed with the reading, is there any additions or corrections from the annual meeting minutes of last year that you have already read? If not, is there a motion to approve? We have a motion. Is there a second? Cliff, you second. All in favor signify by saying aye. You threw me off guard there when you made that motion there with a couple of deals. That's good. I'm glad you did that. Keeps us on our toes. So next thing we're going to do is I'm going to introduce to you our CEO, Mr. Al Heyman, and he's going to give you our financial.
All right, good evening, everyone. I will give the financial report at this time. So the slide you see up there now shows our net margin for 2025, which was $3.8 million, and it looks a little bit higher than normal. We received a large allocation from our wholesale power provider, Great River Energy. They're also a cooperative. Our local margins at REA were $1.4 million for the year, which was right on our budget. The blended interest rate on the debt, now this is a long-term debt. We have a little bit in short-term borrowing. About 80% of our debt is long-term. And you can see here the interest rate as it's risen over the last couple of years, and we hope to see that come down moving forward. But again, it's just as interest rates rise, those affect us too during, as we take new loans out. We have roughly $65 million borrowed at this time. Equity is at 39.4%. at the end of the year. We like to see that run in the 35 to 45% range. Statewide average for 2025 was right around 41%. Kilowatt hours sold were up a little bit from 2024. If we were to look at a 15-year chart, this would be flat. We've not seen load growth for over 15 years. Prior to that, we could count on increase in annual sales to help offset our costs. With the units staying the same, but the cost of business going up, that's a driver in rates, which I'll talk about a little bit later on tonight. This is the revenue per kilowatt hour sold, and you can see 21 and 22 were very close. Again, inflation affects power cost. And that number those numbers that you see there are primarily driven by the cost of wholesale power that we buy. We added 151 accounts. We average about 150 through this graph. That's an increase of about 1% a year in the number of locations that we serve. 47% of our revenue comes from what we call residential accounts. If you lump residential, farm, and seasonal together, that's about 87% of our total revenue. We're a little bit unique at Runestone in that we have a high percentage of our income, the revenue, coming from those accounts. Most utilities see a much higher percentage of commercial sales, and that's due to our lakes area and serving around the city of Alexandria. Where it went, 57.6% of our total expenses were power cost. 80% of our expenses each year are power cost, depreciation, interest, and margin. 20% of the budget is what I call things that we can control. So again, the fixed costs really drive our financials here. President Anderson, that's the financial report.
Thank you, Al. Is there any additions or corrections or any questions about the financial? If not, is there a motion to approve? Got a motion right over here. Is there a second? And a second right back there. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Motion is carried. So we're going to go back in time just a little bit. We nearly made it through 2025 without having a major storm until before Thanksgiving, when wet, heavy snow, ice, winds caused a wide spread of outages throughout the Runestone Electric service area. Several broken poles and transmission issues caused a third of our members to experience an outage during that time. With this in mind, we're going to talk just a little about what it takes to restore power back to you. Transmission lines, they're the first to be restored. Transmission lines deliver power to our system for generation facilities such as power plants, wind turbines, hydroelectric dams, solar facilities. REA doesn't maintain any transmission lines. We receive power from transmission lines owned by Great River Energy, Otter Tail Power, Missouri River, and XL Energy. The next step is we energize our substations. REA has 19 substations strategically placed throughout our service territory to provide reliable power to over 15,000 accounts. During an outage, restoring power to the substation is actually our first priority. Substations must be functional before any other part of the system can restore power. Main circuits leave substations to deliver power throughout the service area. Taps and services wires carry power to small groups of members from the main circuit. Our crews will drive the lines to identify the problem and develop a plan to restore the largest number of people out first and quickly, safely as possible. So if you see a bucket truck or a vehicle identified with an REA emblem on the side, and you see them driving down the road and they don't stop and talk to you, but somebody's looking out at the line, They're putting a plan together to try to figure out what it is. It's not that they don't want to stop and talk to you, but they want to get your service on first. Service wires that supply power to just a few locations are usually often the last to be restored. Again, as the goal is to restore power as quickly and safely as possible to the largest number of members. Now, if you heard on that part, we talked about safely. This group right over here, and these people right here, and the entire REA service team take safety very, very, very seriously. Safety is the number one priority. There's absolutely zero compromise in that at all. So you take an outage that they're working on, or you take something at your house that you're working on, and you want to get it done quick to get things restored back to service. And if you make a mistake, sometimes it's because we've been too quick. Well, we sometimes can survive that at home, but sometimes we can't in the power world. So you kind of put yourself in their shoes and you see what they have to go. We got to not forget that these outages can be difficult to find and often take longer to restore overhead outages or underground outages, especially if they're in the wintertime and the ground is frozen. One of our best defenses against Mother Nature is the rigorous maintenance that is done on our system. We have a very aggressive right-of-way clearing program. Over the past 5 years, we have spent over $3.3 million on tree clearing. To our declining outage hours, that is proof that investment has really paid off. Our goal is to maintain a 10-year rotation through our service territory. Replacing overhead power lines with underground wires and other effective defense against storms. This year alone, we'll be putting $1.3 million in converting overhead into underground. We have about 3,000 miles of line supplying service to 7 different counties. About 50% is overhead, the other 50% is underground. We usually use underground cable when we're putting in new construction, so you can see as time goes on, that underground construction number will increase. We want to thank you for your patience when you experience a power outage. And I want to personally thank our dedicated employees for working hard, often in miserable conditions, to get the lights back on. We all appreciate that. Speaking of outages, I'm proud that our co-op has a history of providing mutual aid to co-ops regionally and nationally. In recent years, we have sent crews to help after storms here in Minnesota, as well as North Dakota, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, and Louisiana. I'm thankful that our employees are still willing to want to go out and give the others a hand. Next, I'd like to talk about capital credits. As a co-op like REA, profits are returned to our members as capital credits. Over the years, REA has retired over $25 million in capital credits to our members. This year, we're going to be doing a little something different. Instead of sending checks, bill credits will be applied to an active account with capital credit requirements of $500 or less. You will see this on the bill you receive starting in May. Checks will be sent if the amount exceeds $500 or if the account is inactive or if the member is on budget billing. This new member will save the co-op thousands of dollars in postage, printing, and labor cost. The management team here and the board will evaluate this process to ensure that is the right way. But we'd certainly like to have your opinion if you think it's right or not. Feel free to share that with us. Another thing we do is in October we hosted a second annual member tour. The bus tour visited several served by REA. The stops included CF Industries, Dorsch Dairy, Rolling Forks Vineyard, Glacial Ridge Growers, and Glacial Lake State Park. It was really a great day. And if it sounds like something that you might like or be interested, the details will be coming out on the 2026 tour. We appreciate our members' business for opening their door and giving us the behind-the-scenes look at their operation. Speaking of business, served by REA, be sure to use your gift certificate you received when you registered today. We have 23 businesses participating in this year, and I'm sure they'd love to have you give them a call. They'd love to see your smiling face as you walk in through the door. I want to take a moment to thank all of our who participate in Operation Roundup. I encourage everybody to get involved with that. That's a pretty neat deal. Over 64% of our members allow their bills to be rounded up to the next dollar. Over the past 23 years, over $1.3 million has been given out to grants in the area of nonprofit organizations. In 2025, the yearly average contribution was just around $6.50. It's a true example of how small the change can add up and make a big difference. Also, on Operation Roundup, I'd like to give a thank you out to Great River Energy. They donated $6,000 to Operation Roundup this year. In 2025, the Operation Roundup Trust Board reviewed 145 applications and funded 124 requests totaling $63,000. Trust Board members include Rich Moan, Mary Betterman, Dave Lundy, Rich Duncan, Pat Soberg, John Rolfe, and Joe Roars. A big thank you goes out to Dave Lundy. Are you here today, Dave? I don't see Dave, but if he was here, he should get a nice applause for, he just completed a 6-year term, and we sure do appreciate the service that he provided for us. One thing I really like about Operation Roundup is that 97 or 95% of the bill goes back to the community as grants. When you get your REA bill, it's a pretty cool deal. I'd encourage you to step up and do that if you could. While I finish up here, something that I would like to say thank you to is I'd like to say thank you to the 35 employees that help keep these lights on, processing 100,000 bills a year, taking hundreds of phone calls, emails, helping members solve their heating and cooling problem, and so much more. It's not a small task. On behalf of the entire board, we appreciate all you do. And please don't hesitate to stop in. They're always willing to chit-chat and chat about things. So thank you for helping out. That concludes my report. I will take any question that anybody would have on my report. Seeing none, I am going to turn it over to our CEO, Al Heyman.
All right, thanks, Andy. We have a few obstacles up here, so we're stumbling around a little bit. So again, welcome everyone. Good to see everybody. Appreciate you taking an hour tonight. It's pretty nice out there aside from the wind, so I'll try not to be too windy up here. Since, as Andy covered, 2025 really was kind of a standard typical year until right before Thanksgiving. So rather than rehash last year, I thought I'd talk a little bit about what might be on everybody's mind and some of the challenges that we're focused on at the co-op right now. So over the last probably 3, 4, 5 months, one of the questions that I've gotten a lot of is, why does my electricity bill keep going up? In the old days, the bills stayed pretty much the same year to year, and we're kind of in a different environment right now. I could talk about this for probably an hour, and I'll try to do it in 10. So kind of the key points. As I mentioned earlier in the financial report, inflation is a big deal for us. We're a little bit different than the price of eggs that go up and down really quickly. Our inflation is impacted over long periods of time. And really from 21 to 24 is where kind of the foundation for the situation we're in right now was set. Probably the simplest example I can use is that the material we buy to build all the lines to your homes has doubled since 2021. So our plant is a $125 million plant. Doubling the cost of new construction is a significant impact. And on top of that, many of the items that we buy have multi-year lead times. So we've already committed to purchasing stuff into 2027 and 2028. What happens is that the inventory that we have on hand was bought pre-inflation, and as we bring in the new inventory over this period of time, 2025 was the year that we really began to see the impacts of that, as we use that more expensive inventory that we're bringing in. In addition to that, the cost of all the supporting activities, for the core business have been going up too. Everything from insurance, labor costs, to interest and postage have all gone up with inflation, really outside of our control. We will continue to work to find cost savings wherever possible without compromising the safety or reliability of the power that we provide. While inflation was pushing costs up, conditions in the wholesale power market, where we get our electric supply, were changing too. So I'd like to take a few minutes to talk about this and kind of how that'll impact us in the years ahead. The first thing that I want to make you aware of is something called the Mid-Continent Independent System Operator, and we refer to that as MISO. MISO is a regional reliability organization. They're based in Indiana, and they serve utilities from Manitoba to Louisiana in the center part of the United States. Their role is basically two things. One is to make sure that the power is reliable, that we have enough generation and can move it, and they facilitate the wholesale power markets to be sure that it's a competitive bidding that I'll talk about, to be sure that we're getting the lowest cost electricity that we can. To maintain reliability, MISO studies the transmission system throughout their footprint to ensure there are enough lines to move the electricity from where it's generated to where it's used. Here in Minnesota and the surrounding states, we get about 45% of our energy, the kilowatt hours, from wind. However, in recent years, the transmission system in this region has experienced significant congestion at times of high wind. Essentially, the congestion is like a traffic jam on the freeway. And it drives up costs because more expensive generators downstream from the traffic jam have to be called on to meet the power needed. One of MISO's responsibilities is to identify where new transmission lines should be built to relieve congestion. The new lines are expensive and their costs will be paid by all retail customers across the entire MISO region. MISO is responsible for ensuring enough generation is available and conducts an annual generator capacity auction. They forecast the peak power demand over the next 12 months, add a safety margin, and then invite generators to bid into the market based on their specific costs of providing electricity. Wind generators typically bid low because they have no fuel expense. Diesel generators are the most expensive. Natural gas combustion turbines fall somewhere in the middle of that. Unfortunately, as we retire coal plants and replace them with new natural gas, which is more expensive than the existing coal fleet, auction prices have been rising in recent years. And that's how you would expect a market to work. When we need more generation, the auction price goes up, and developers have an incentive to build new generators. So the final piece that we rely on for MISO is the purchase of our day-to-day electricity in a couple of markets that I'll describe. So MISO operates a day-ahead market and a real-time market. In the day-ahead market, participants forecast retail load for every hour of the next day and submit those schedules to MISO. Great River Energy does this on our behalf each morning. At the same time as the load is being bid in, Generators are submitting what they can produce the next day and what the cost of that electricity will be. MISO then awards generators, starting with the lowest cost bids, selecting higher and higher generators until they've got enough power scheduled to meet the load that has been forecast. The important part of that auction is that all generators that are selected to run that next day are paid the price of the highest cost generator in the auction. So the example would be if a generator costs 50 cents a kilowatt hour, and you're paying about 12 right now from us, retail. If a 50-cent generator is scheduled and a wind generator is in that same mix at 5 cents per kilowatt hour in that auction, the wind generator also gets paid 50 cents. So everybody's paying that same price. And the reverse can be true. A generator might choose to operate at a loss for a period of time because it is difficult or expensive to start and stop it. So then the next day, the real-time market acts as a safety net when actual load differs from the day-ahead forecast, or a generator goes offline unexpectedly. MISO will adjust for that by calling on other resources to ramp up or down. They may have the ability to reduce load, or they would call on another generator to enter the market, which is probably going to be higher than the one that was scheduled to run. Usually, in a practical experience, those two generally match pretty closely. So that's a kind of a quick overview of MISO and how it plays into the electric rates that we have here at Runestone Electric. Next thing I'd like to talk about is our demand-side management programs. These are the programs that allow us to control water heaters, air conditioners, heating systems, and electric vehicle chargers. Roughly half of our accounts participate in the water heater program. Due to the MISO market structure I just described, we've determined that the best value for these controllable loads is to register them with MISO as a load modifying resource. When electricity prices spike or MISO faces a generation shortage, we can temporarily reduce that load instead of relying on expensive generators. Participants in these programs are rewarded with lower electricity costs. However, the way we operate the programs is changing due to the evolution of that market. You may remember the extended 12-hour load control we had in late January. That was very unusual for us. Normally we have much shorter control windows, but that one went from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. I believe it was on a Saturday. It was triggered by a prolonged cold snap combined with MISO's day-ahead auction skyrocketing. They had very expensive generators that were in the mix that day. So GRE saw this in the day-ahead market. They announced that they were going to do the 12-hour load control rather than purchase power at prices that approached 75 cents per kilowatt hour that day. Due to the long control, we know this caused some inconvenience for some members whose homes lacked adequate backup heating. If that was your experience, please talk to us. The goal of the program is not to create discomfort in your home or cause you any concern about when the heat's going to come back on. As the market evolves, we'll make changes to our demand-side management programs. In the past, power was typically cheap at night and expensive during the day. That's no longer the case. Today, power costs are driven more by natural gas price and wind availability. When the wind isn't blowing, the costs rise. And if the wind is blowing, the costs are very low. So we're trying to design our programs to fit into this new dynamic that we're seeing now. Ideally, our control loads should be able to follow the wind. In the future, we will need the ability to shed loads quickly There's a higher value for a load that can be turned off within 30 minutes. We need flexible duration of how many hours and what time of the day. If wind isn't blowing in the morning, we may be doing controls. It will take time to make this transition. We need to redesign our rates, understand how the markets work, but we're actively working on it. Another important factor affecting our future costs is Minnesota's carbon-free by 2040 law that was passed in 2023. Meeting this standard will be extremely difficult and expensive. We're seeing the need for massive transmission grid expansion to move wind and solar power from where it can be generated, generally North Dakota, South Dakota, and Iowa, and southern Minnesota. We need to be able to move that into Minnesota, and it takes transmission lines to do that. These two are going to have to be paid, and they're going to show up in our electricity rates. Permitting delays, limited wind turbine availability, and changes in federal tax policy are all pushing project timelines further out and driving up costs, making it even more difficult to meet the carbon-free by 2040 requirement. Battery storage is not yet a viable solution at utility scale. If policymakers decide to adopt a more practical, all of the above generation strategy to meet the 2040 requirement, nuclear energy must be a part of that conversation. However, it remains illegal to build a nuclear plant in Minnesota, which means developers won't even consider it. It's time to lift the nuclear moratorium in our state. That'll be my last political statement. The last common question I've been hearing involves data centers. Most of you have probably been reading a lot about that. For those that don't know, data centers are large facilities that provide computing services for companies like Google, Amazon, and Apple. Some of these facilities can use 10 times as much electricity as our entire cooperative. Great River Energy is currently developing best practices for serving loads of this size. In my opinion, the data center developers need to bear the full cost of the new generation and infrastructure needed to serve their facilities so that our rates are protected from increase. In closing, rate increases are never welcome news. I've taken lots of phone calls and mail on it. The costs are rising in many areas all at the same time, and I just want to assure you that together with our board of directors, I'll work hard to make sure that we're pursuing responsible and thoughtful solutions to the problem. So with that, Andy, if I could offer to take any questions. Can we get a mic over to you and we'll...
I have a question about just turning off my electric for 12 hours. I thought my furnace was broken. I don't know if there's any way that you notify us of this stuff, but I called the furnace repairman, and by then it was working, so he said, no, there's nothing wrong with your furnace.
Sure.
But I had to pay for the furnace repair. Is there a way that you contact us when you're going to shut us off? I didn't think that was ever going to happen, that we'd be shut off that long.
Yeah, that was a very unusual situation. We do have ways to notify you. On our website, we do post the hours. And if after the meeting, the gentleman that handed you the microphone, he'd be willing to talk in a little more detail about that, or call the office. Again, I know that 12 hours was difficult for many people. It may be that if we're going to have more 12-hour controls in the future, yes, we need to communicate better, but you may not fit into the load management program anymore. And we need to acknowledge that and work with you to determine if it's a program that fits your needs.
Well, I may be wanting to shut that off if that's the case. I mean, it cost me to do extra electric work and stuff at the time I connect it with you. And now things like this is going to happen. I'm going to pay a furnace man to tell me there's nothing wrong with my furnace. I'm not sure I'd want to stick with you on that. I'd
Sure.
go back to my full-time electric again and not have you control my electric.
Yep, I understand that, and that's a discussion that we need to have, and we can talk to you about the bill too.
But I never thought of being shut off that long, so I never checked anything on the electric outfit.
I understand.
Comment to that is text messaging works great for getting notified.
Yeah, we have a number of ways to communicate that, and we try to cover those in our newsletter. Typically, when we start getting into the fall season, we try to remind people to check their backup, is your propane tank full, and kind of go through the notification methods, so thank you.
Chairman, Al, you mentioned we need to have an all-above approach to work on generation. You didn't say anything about solar. Could you, if we lifted the moratorium on nuclear now, it's still 5 to 10 years before we would have a plant built, roughly at a cost of $110 per kilowatt hour. Solar can be deployed in months, smaller scale. Could you give us a little bit of the pros and cons on that aspect?
Sure. So the biggest, I'll start with the biggest issue. The biggest issue is nighttime, right? Obviously. And you're right, the development of a nuclear plant is before one is online, is probably beyond the 2040. But if we don't begin studying it now, and like I mentioned before, there's really nobody looking at it in the state. We need to get the process going. As far as deployment of solar, I'm all on board with solar. It needs to be, there's the utility scale. If you've been by Becker, there's a huge solar farm there. There's one right by Osakis, much smaller. To be able to have enough acreage to contribute significantly is a challenge, because in a lot of the state where you could permit these, it's valuable farmland. So again, there's the whole, what is the best use of those acres? Is it in growing food? Is it in solar? Well, wind too. And then do we have the technology to advance agriculture underneath that? We promote backyard solar, I call it. Our experience with that we have less than 100 systems, on Runestone out of 15,500 possible locations. We would be completely accepting of members generating their own electricity. Recall a few years ago, we had this significant increase in the fixed charge. We went from around 30 to over 50. And we did that as part of a strategy to allow, if backyard solar were to become a thing, popular, and our electricity sales continue to go down, we wanted to position the co-op that it didn't matter as much if we sold electricity or not. We could become a delivery company. So far, and since last September, I believe, we've seen the interest in solar drop off because of federal tax subsidies and things like that going away. So I think it plays a role. There's some challenges. If batteries get to a point where you can economically put the solar into a battery to be able to discharge it at night, I think that's great. That isn't available yet. It might work in your home on a small scale. Large utility scale is a ways away. California is approaching that. Their solar is a significant contributor. Another technical thing is that when solar ramps down, it all ramps down very quickly. And that's another technical challenge, because you need to have another generator queued up to match that ramp down to be able to provide what the solar dropped off. So those are a few of the things I see as kind of being a challenge. Ryan, Cliff down here. Oh, you got another one over there? Cliff, you're not going to ask me a hard question, are you?
Of course, I never do that. Thanks.
Okay, Al, I appreciate the fact that you're open to everything. And of course, I was on the board here for 9 years. I was on the board when we hired Al. I didn't agree with him all the time then. I don't agree with you all the time now, but I think you're on the right track. If we did grid aggregation, a lot of small solar wind, grid aggregation, which Andy, I think Great River can handle now, and members willing to use power as needed and better utilize what's already surplus on the grid, could we soften some of this? And I would ask you to challenge us, members. Put us to work to see what we can do to make these rates easier for everybody. I think we have the ability here. We've got a good co-op. I was on the board for 9 years, and I worked as a dairy inspector for 13. Runestone Electric is not a good co-op. It's one of the best, if not the best, I work with. So we've got an organization here. We've got management. We've got a great board. I know most of these folks. Let's put our shoulder in a harness. Let's see if we can get some rubber to the road to see what we can do to produce our own generation, our own energy. For those of you that grew up on a dairy farm, we all know the best feed we can feed our cattle are the feed we produced ourselves. The same could be true for energy. It's a big challenge, Al. And you're really a good man. You're an engineer. You guys know how to figure this stuff out. I'd like to challenge you with that, Al, and I think you could do it. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Cliff. That's great. So what Cliff is talking about is probably the easiest parallel to draw. The solar panels one. The other one is if you have a residential standby generator at your home. Power goes out, you've got a generator there that starts up and it serves your needs until utility comes back. In the past, we've been unable to tap into that. In the future, it could be an electric vehicle where that battery in your car, you've plugged it in, it's charged up. The technology is available to feed that power back onto the grid. Now, in the past, our rate structure from Great River Energy didn't really allow that. It wasn't financially doable. We're working with GRE. Hopefully by 2028, we will be able to roll out a program here where we can aggregate things, whatever they are, and they act, kind of the buzzword is a virtual power plant, where we control everybody's residential generator for not 12 hours, but for a couple hours or an hour, whatever the program is that you agree to, and we can bring those back on. And solar batteries in particular, if people are installing backyard solar, you should think about putting a battery with it, charge a battery with the solar, and then go into a program with us where we can discharge that battery when it makes the most sense. That's kind of when I talk about the new demand-side management programs, that's really kind of the direction right now that we're looking to try to tap into that really is not, we're not doing that right now, so that would be something new.
Yes, I haven't heard anything about electric cars. On the way from where I parked to the door here, 3 of them drove by me, so obviously there are electric cars in the area. What's the story on electric cars?
We have a program for electric charging so that those aren't charging when peak power prices are in place. If you're asking my general experience with that, I think we had steady additions. I'm talking about within Runestone members. We had steady additions that dropped off again when the the federal tax subsidies. We saw kind of a rush in August, September. I think it's been pretty quiet. I don't know, Ryan, do we have 100 electric chargers?
About 75.
75 electric chargers. And that's, we're adding a few each year, but it's not, 75 out of 15,000 plus, around 13,000 homes, that's not a lot. Now, there could be a number of them out there that we're not aware of. These are ones that we kind of know about. We're a highly, we have a lot of second homes here, where people may be coming to their vacation home and they got chargers that we're not aware of. There could be some of that going on, but it's important for us to get those chargers into a program so we can control when those are on the grid. I think you got one down here. See, Andy, this happens every time I start taking questions.
Is there anything being done on a legislative level to keep the AI data centers out of Minnesota, or at least to force them to generate their own electricity?
There have been some, our legislature is split right now, and they're having difficulty doing anything. There have been efforts by groups to bring legislation in to have a little more oversight on what these data centers might do, whether that be water, what kind of generation are they using? There's been, to my knowledge, there won't be any legislation passed this session related to data centers. What I do see happening is local groups. I believe yesterday there was a county board that rejected a rezoning request for a large data center in Nobles County, which effectively killed the project in Nobles County. So in my observation, I don't see legislation. I see more groups coming together that don't want them, probably more for the land use, water use, aesthetics type of things. We here, just so you know, we have not, we don't have any inquiries for data centers or anything like that in our area here. But to the extent that data centers are going into MISO, that could impact us depending upon, how they're going to be getting their power. It's something that we monitor very, very closely. Any other questions? All right, I'll be around here for a little bit. You can catch me over on the side if you want to have a private conversation. Andy?
Very good report, Al. As you all can see, it's pretty complex, a lot going on there, but how about a hand for Al? That was a pretty doggone good report. Thank you, Al. That's great. All righty, we're going to present some scholarships tonight. So on behalf of the REA Board of Directors, I'm pleased to present the winners of the 2026 REA Scholarship Program. The scholarships are funded through unclaimed capital credits. Over the past 20 years, over 300 students have received over $250,000 in scholarships from REA. Today, each student will receive a $1,000 scholarship. This year, we had 81 applicants. 27 winners were randomly drawn, each from the 7 different districts that we have. So students, when your name is called, please stand and remain standing, please. And everybody that's in the audience, if you could hold your applause until we get all the names and all the students standing, then we'll give them a good round of applause, show how much we appreciate them. And then after that's all done, we'd like to have the students leave and go out, and Kelly is out over there, and she'll take you back in the lobby so you can have a picture taken and some of that stuff. So here we go. First one is Jaden Anderson. Jaden's parents are Tyler and Kelly Anderson of Evansville. Jaden, if you are here, please stand. Nora Anderson. Nora's parents are Michael and Amanda Anderson of Kensington. Whitney Blum. Whitney's parents are Dominic and Charlene Blum of Elbow Lake. Rowan Basil. Rowan's parents are Brent and Amanda Basil of Parker's Prairie. Maddie Bolden. Maddie's parents are Sean and Jesse Bolden of Nelson. Kendall Burgermeyer. Kendall's parents are Brandon Burgermeyer and Lisa Hilgers Burgermeyer of Waconia. Amelia Crosley. Amelia's parents are Larry and Darla Crosley of Carlos. And if I mispronounce your name, I apologize for that. Benjamin Dane. Benjamin's parents are Jason and Danielle Dane of Montevideo. Lillian Glesney. Lillian's parents are Lee and Kim Glesney of Alexandria. Ryan Gresseth. Ryan's parents are Corey and Melena Gresseth of Villard. Samurai Grosek. Samurai's parents are Corey and Stephanie Grosek of Carlos. Carter Jobs. Carter's parents are Brian and Nicole Jobs of Barrett. I hope I said that right. Ava Klimek. Ava's parents are Daniel and Sarah Klimek of Alexandria. Mariah Kavit. Mariah's parents are Ben and Abby Kavit of Alexandria. Hayden Lenars. Hayden's parents are Thomas and Denise Lenars of Sartell. Lily Mahoney. Lily's parents are Paul and Christine Mahoney of Kensington. Levi Mittendorf. Levi's parents are Travis and Jean Mittendorf of Osakis. Sophie Peffer. Sophie's parents are Kenny and Christine Peffer of Parker's Prairie. Julian Ramos. Julian's parents are Georgia and Ramos and Stephanie Rutten Ramos of Farwell. Sullivan Rooney. Sullivan's parents are Ryan and Hannah Rooney of Alexandria. Rose Schonberg. Rose's parents are Nathan and Jessica Schonberg of Farwell. Lacey Seary. Lacey's parents are Andy and Emily Seary of Brandon. Olivia Suki. Olivia is Jake and Jackie Suki of Parker's Prairie. Abby Waltz. Abby's parents are John and Amanda Waltz of Alexandria. Rebecca Wold. Rebecca's parents are Jared and Pamela Wold of Alexandria. Trayton Zehammer. Trayton's parents are Randy and Tammy Zehammer of Starbuck. Meadow Zimpel. Meadow's parents are Philip and Christine Zimpel of Alexandria. How about that? That's pretty cool for all these folks, ain't it? So now if the students would want to take and head back to that corner there, there's Kelly back there. There, she's waving at you. You want to get a picture of you, and you can meet out there. Cool, cool. Thank you very much for taking the time to apply for this. This is a pretty neat deal. So is there any unfinished business, anything else that we should bring before this board today?
Could you remind everybody where the scholarships come from?
They come from unclaimed capital credits. Thank you. Good question. Did you hear that? I didn't catch that all. So they're nodding their head yes, so I'm going with a yes. Thank you. All right, is there any new business? This time I'd like to turn this over to our attorney, Mr. Mark Sugden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening. The incumbent director candidates, John Winter in District 3, Joel Sela in District 6 and Matthew Matson in District 7 all ran unopposed. Consequently, pursuant to the cooperative's bylaws, Directors Winter, Sela, and Matson may be elected by acclamation, a voice vote by the members. Do we have a motion to elect John Winter as the District 3 Director? We have a motion. Is there a second? We have a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Congratulations, John, on your re-election as the District 3 Director. Do we have a motion to elect Joel Sela as the District 6 Director? We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Congratulations, Joel, on your re-election. And do we have a motion to elect Matthew Matson as the District 7 Director? Motion in the back. Do we have a second? We have a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Congratulations, Matt, on your re-election. Thank you.
Congratulations, Matt and John and Joel. Very nice. Glad you're back on there. Good guys to have. At this point in time, we have no other business to conduct here today. Just want to say thank you very much for attending this meeting today. And as you can see, the electric world is a challenge. But we're pretty thankful that we've got these guys right here watching over things. On behalf of the board, I want to say thank you once again to our employees. God bless you. We're very fortunate. At this point in time, is there a motion to adjourn the meeting? We have a motion. Is there a second? We have a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion is carried. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.